Here is a review of my Revel Rail 2.9, built June of 2025. I'm going to review the entire bike and some of the components, maybe in some separate videos individually as well. So first I will say, this is the Revel Rail 2.9 in the cowboy coffee color. It is a 170 travel, 155 rear travel, front travel 170, rear travel 155. And for me, it replaced a V1 Ibis Ripmo. So component wise, what I've got on here, some unique things to it. I've got the push coil fork. I now have the push 11.6 rear shock. It did originally come spec'd with the RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate. I have recently replaced that with the Coil rear shock. It has a XO cable actuated rear drivetrain from SRAM Eagle, and it is not access. I prefer not access. It has a bike yoke dropper post in 185 mils, ergon saddle. It has the braking system. It is provided by Hayes. It's Hayes Dominion T4 brake system, not the A4. I have a 203 millimeter front rotor, a 180 rear, and no need for an adapter. It's spec for that size in the rear. Let's see. I have White Industries hubs laced to Derby rims. They're TR30i rims. And let's see, Deity grips, Renthal carbon fat bar, King Creek headset, and Shimano pedals. So I'm a big fan. I have to say, I was looking for a bike as my Ripmo V1 was getting on in mileage and years. I think it was 2019 when I built that bike. Oh, one thing I did forget. The front chainring is an absolute black oval chainring, 32 toothed. Anyway, comments. So I was looking for a bike that wasn't terribly far off of my Ripmo. It was a great bike. I rode it for years with a lot of miles in all kinds of conditions. And yeah, big fan of that bike. So I didn't want something that was too crazy. So I've been browsing around a lot of different stuff, watching a lot of reviews. And what sealed the deal for me, though, was I happened to be on Revel's website the day before the company declared bankruptcy. And their frame sets went from about $3,400 to 32, I can't remember exactly, but down to about $1,700. So that did it. I pulled the trigger immediately, and literally the next day the company declared bankruptcy. Had me a little worried about warranty and stuff like that, but that company has since been taken over by the former owner and is operating. But lucky me, I got this large frame for a pretty significant discount. And I think by the next day, they had sold almost everything out, or at least the next few days. So I almost did not get this. But a couple things. So I got a discount on the frame. I decided to go a little nuts on the Push Industries Nine.One fork. The Nine.One is a coil fork, and there are some massive differences to this fork versus other ones I was looking at. I was looking at everything, Fox 38, it's 170 mil fork. So Fox 38, RockShox Zeb, the Olin's, King Creek makes four. I was looking at a lot of stuff. This is a little reversed. almost like a moto fork with the stanchions on the lower end. Very beefy, little on the heavy side, but I have found in the ride, I think it's a good thing with a little more weight over that front tire. I have found it to be very grippy. Didn't mention the tires, by the way. Those are Victoria Mazda's front and rear 2.4. So anyway, back to the fork. Very unique in its design. A couple of things about it that I did not expect. Number one, mounting of the front tire is not the easy stick a through axle pin and tighten it down as it is on other forks. You've got a tool here, obviously, but you also need a tool on this side when you install it to tighten those axles. But then you have these front bolts down here, which require, I believe it's 5 Newton meters of torque as well. So not super easy. I have not had to do a trail side tire change yet, fortunately. But yeah, it's not on my old Ritmo. Gosh, I had a through axle with a release. I could just spin it out, take it out, take the tire out. Not the case here. So a little bit more complex there. Then you have these plastic covers for the stanchions. I have not had a rock impact or a crash impact, so we'll see how they hold up. Mounting the brake cable, there's this little, I think it's a carbon fiber piece, truthfully plastic maybe, I don't know, that you had to screw on. Nothing difficult with that, nothing difficult to get that in. Adjustments, you've got a rebound adjustment on this side under here. You've got I think you've got an air valve. Somewhere there's an air valve. Maybe it's up in here, actually. It would make sense that it's up in there. I haven't had to do it. When you get the when you order the shock, you give them your rider weight with your gear, what it's going on and stuff like that, and they kind of set it up for you and send it out. Now, I did make a few adjustments to the compression settings, but nothing major. It came very well set up, in my opinion. Some things ride, things that I noticed. You hear air come out of this. I think this is like an air release valve or bleed valve. And so I wasn't sure if that was correct or if it should be that way. So I emailed them, and yeah, it's normal. On this side, you have another one where you can actually just pop this out and release some air pressure from the shock. I've not done that as well. It rides great. I am a big fan. Very compliant on braking bumps, big hits, all kinds of really cool stuff there. So big fan of that. Now, the RockShox shock that it came spec with, I have about 400 miles on this bike. Probably 300 of those miles were ridden on that shock. Good shock, no complaints. But I will say, having put this on and now having about 100 miles on it, I am a huge fan of this rear shock. I have done some time testing on laps on some stuff, and now it's almost like two completely different shocks just by switching. We'll call that the climb mode and the descend mode. And Strava times, which, they are what they are, whatever you feel about Strava. I had on a circuit, I had descending, one of the best times I've had in 4 years, descending. And I looped that descent, which required about a 45-minute climb. Once in climb and once out of climb. And I was in climb, I was about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes faster. And that time was in the top 5 in the last 4 of climbing. So I thought there might be a climbing penalty by going from the RockShox to this. I don't think it's there. They set this thing up completely. What comes out of the box, they took rider weight, all that stuff. They spec it specific to the bike. Matter of fact, Revel recommends this shock if you're going to go with a coil on the bike. And I didn't have to do anything. I basically took it out of the box and I put in the bolts. I didn't have to adjust the rebound. I didn't have to adjust high speed, low compression. What it's set at is on a nice card So I know, very, very impressed with that. My only complaint with Push all in all is it did take a while to get the shock, and there wasn't a lot of, or the fork when I ordered it, there wasn't a lot of communication. I emailed them a couple of times. They finally responded. I think what they were dealing with, I think there was an issue with some warranty issues, and they were trying to correct it so they wouldn't have to deal with future warranties on forks going out. But great combo on this bike. Other things, the bike yoke, 185 is what would have been spec'd on this large from Revel. So I went with that size. No issues with that. I don't think I would have needed anything bigger. Let's see, the Tanefield rear suspension. A big fan of that. Rides really well. I am not a fan of Axis. I've had to warranty it too many times, so I went with the traditional mechanical rear mech setup. Great. I love it. Absolute love Absolute Black's chain rings. I don't know if it made me any faster, but my knees feel better. And I've heard that from other people. Stopping power. I did something that is different for me. I went with the Hayes T4 brakes, and they are awesome, except they're very different than what I'm used to. Setup was pretty unique. Let me see if I can show this. I'm used to Shimano XT. Now, something unique to this fork, there's, depending on the size rotor you have, the fork comes with these little spacers that you mount the brake caliper onto, specific to the size of the rotor you've got. So that was a little unique. That actually came with the fork. I wasn't used to pads that inserted from the underside. Shimano does it from the top, so that was unique. And when you mount these, you put it on, you push in the caliper, you tighten down a little bit, and then you adjust these screws, these little screws to kind of center it on the brake rotor. And that was a really cool setup. I like the way that worked. The T4 versus I think the A4 comes with a different kind of pad. I think it's a mix of metallic and resin on the pad material. I will say that the first set of pads I put in here did not last as long as I thought they should. I've got a new set in here. We'll see how long they last. They seem to be holding up better. I don't know if it was just me getting used to how the brake levers worked and everything else. There is, on the brake levers, a little more travel before you get to the bite than I was used to. And I worked a lot in adjusting lever length because I found, after I trimmed the cables and bled them, that over time, and maybe I didn't do a great bleed. It was my first bleed with this kind of system versus Shimano's. But I found that the levers would go in as the pads wore quite a bit. Now, these T4s, they don't have an adjustment knob. You actually have to use a 2mm Allen key. Actually, it's up on this side to adjust the levers out. So you have to have that Allen key to adjust it. Now, they do have an adjustment for bite point, but it's already, I think, comes spec'd to bite as fast as it can. So anyway, that was some adjustments. I did have a problem with the when I had to trim this cable, and I took out this screw. The threads got completely trashed, and I reached out to Hayes, and they completely warranted that brake and let me keep the old one. So I got a completely new brake and lever and everything for the rear. So I kind of have some spare parts on that, which is kind of cool. But when I was, one of the things I wasn't sure for what was happening, but I felt like this one needed constant adjustment. And I decided maybe this was working its way out as I was riding. So I put a little thread locker on the nut in there, and I haven't had any problems since. So we'll see if that holds up. Let's see. Renthal fat bar. This is my third one. I went with a little more rise on it than I had done before. But great bar. Continue to love it. These deity grips. Great. XX or XO1 shifter. I did come off of my Ripmo, had an XX1 setup. I don't feel like there's a massive difference there. The bike yoke's been great. I really love on bike yoke how you can bleed air simply if it gets a little spongy. I don't have to do it much. I've done it a couple times, but yeah, bike yoke's lever has always been good. Let's see what I haven't talked about on this rig. The derby wheels, great wheels. These are my third set of derbies. Yeah, just a big fan of the derby wheels. So overall, this bike so far is pretty awesome. Hoping to get a solid another 5 years or plus out of this thing of hard riding. So hope you enjoyed it.